Assalamualaikum and a warm welcome I bid to all. And before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the organizer for the honor of being the keynote speaker at IConFEd 2020. It is a pleasure to share this virtual platform with other renowned speakers to convey my perspective on the future of education. In this session, I will explore the meaning of the future of education and how we can embrace it, uncertainties, and manage the challenges. The question that I would like to pose is, are we ready to face them? Do we have the knowledge and skills to grapple through them? And ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about the future, there are pertinent questions that we need to address. The first is, what do we think about the future? Secondly, why do we need to think about the future? And thirdly, how do we prepare ourselves for the future? Ladies and gentlemen, for the first question, I would like all of you to close your eyes for about 20 seconds. Think of something that had happened 2 decades ago. Would you have thought of it to happen 20 years back? Let's take the current scenario. With the current pandemic, COVID-19 outbreak, the advancement of telecommunication such as the smartphones, the internet, the development of artificial intelligence, there are amongst the scenarios that we might not have thought about 2 decades ago. The truth is that the future loves giving us surprises. Take what we and those around the world are currently experiencing, how the pandemic has impacted us and economically and socially. Even our education system is severely and worryingly affected. Our world is in a perpetual state of change. So from the first industrial revolution, as what in the slide, we can see the development and advancement of the technology that utilizes steam and water power to the use of mass production and electricity in the second revolution. Then came the advancement in the electronic and information technology system and automation in the third revolution. And now the fourth revolution emphasizes on the big data analytics, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. And the changes are all at a breakneck speed. But more importantly is how is the fourth industrial revolution going to impact on our education system. Ladies and gentlemen, why do we need to think about the future? And it is imperative for us to realize that the power of neuroscience may become explosive in the future. And current researchers are on the threshold of new scientific discoveries that will likely leave us breathless. Soon enough, we would one day control objects around us with the power of the mind. We can download memories, cure mental illness, enhance our intelligence, understand brain, neuron by neuron, create backup copies of the brain, and communicate with one another through telepathic channels of communication, perhaps. And the world of future will then be the world of the mind. We can get more examples in this book by Professor Michio Kaku. For example, back in 2013, scientists in the University of Washington have demonstrated the first direct human brain-to-brain communication with one human brain sending message to another via the internet. And this milestone was achieved with one scientist sending a brain signal to another scientist. And alright, look at these two pictures, and the first scientist on the left wore an EECG helmet and played a video game. He fired a cannon by just imagining moving his right arm, but was carefully not to move it physically. Then the signal from the EEG helmet was sent over the internet through to another scientist, which is on the right, and who was wearing a transcranial magnetic helmet carefully placed over the part of his brain that control his right arm. When the signal reached the second scientist, then the helmet would send a magnetic pulse into the brain, which made it his right arm move involuntarily, but all by himself. And thus, by remote control, one human brain could control the movement of another. And this breakthrough opens up a number of possibilities, such as exchanging non-verbal messages via the internet. With the discovery, you will be able to send the experience of dancing the tango, bungee jumping, or skydiving to the people on your email list. And not just physical activity, but emotions as well as feelings might be sent via brain-to-brain communication. And you can imagine if someone can intercept our emotion? Scary. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, all this are possible with the technology and the power of internet called artificial intelligence or AI. So what is artificial intelligence? It is the fundamental concept of intelligence based on algorithm utilizing big data analytics, which correspond with every aspect of human lives, for example, economy, technology, social, and politics. And it has become a norm established in the 21st century civilization. For example, we frequently use Waze or Google Map to navigate us to our destination, or Shopee and Lazada to do our online shopping, including our online banking transactions. Artificial intelligence is able to detect and analyze our shopping patterns. So it could analyze the history of our choices and likings, creating a trend using big data analytics, which could influence us to buy more in the future. And another example or discovery is the collaboration between Google and the drug giant Novartis in developing a pair of contact lenses and that checks glucose levels in the blood every few seconds by analyzing the composition of tears. Or Pixie Scientific that sells smart diapers that analyze baby poop for clues about a child's medical condition. And this definitely is something very beneficial for future parents. So then we then ask ourselves, how do we think about the future? How do we prepare ourselves for the future? We need to have strategic foresight, and the two methods which are particularly important, they are trends and scenarios. Trends are a fundamental part of future thinking. They show multiple perspectives, views, and predictions in which the past and the present give rise to the future by forecasting what might happen if the trend were to continue. And the trends help us to tell the difference between what is constant, what is changing, and what is constantly changing. For example, if we look into OECD trend of an educated future between 1970 to the projection of the year 2100, the participation of formal education early in life is not just given, but a major trend that is on the rise. Virtually, all children and adolescents in OECD countries participate in formal education through compulsory enrollment in primary or secondary education programs. High enrollment rates often extend beyond compulsory education. For children and adolescents in some OECD countries, full enrollment in education can last up for 16 or 17 years. And participation in education has also kept rising at the other end of compulsory schooling. In just 10 years, the OECD average proportion of tertiary educated young individuals, 24 to 34 years old, grew from 35 to 44% between 2008 and 2018. And secondly is scenarios. On the other hand, are sets of alternative futures. usually 3 or 4 to compare in the form of snapshots or stories giving an image of a future context. And for example, the 4 OECD scenarios for the future of schooling, which I see as very relevant to the topics discussed in this conference on the future of education. First is the school extended. Participation in formal education continues to expand. International collaboration and technological advances support more individualized learning. Yet, the structures and processes of schooling remain. It's just like we are doing right now. As outsourcing education, traditional system breaks down as society becomes more directly involved in educating its citizens. Learning takes place through more diverse, privatized and flexible arrangements with digital technology as the key driver. Thirdly, schools become learning hubs. Schools remain, but diversity and experimentation are the norm. Opening the school walls connects schools to the communities, favoring ever-changing forms of learning, civic engagement, and social innovation. Learn as you go. Education takes place everywhere, anytime. Distinctions between formal and informal learning are no longer valid as society turns itself entirely to the power of machine. In the context of Malaysia, similar to OECD trend, where there is an increasing participation in the national education system between 0.03% to 0.57% between 2013 to 2019. The enrollment of students has also increased from preschool up until upper secondary school level, which is due to the existing policy of compulsory primary schooling in Malaysia. Apart from that, since 2014, the Ministry of Education Malaysia aspires to transform teaching profession, teaching into a profession of choice among SPM graduates. Thus, the criteria for selection into the teacher education program is set at a minimum of 5 A's in the post-secondary SPM examination. And this effort is to ensure that these students, student teachers are among the best selection in the country. And the quality of the SPM students who are currently enrolled at the Institute of Teacher Education Malaysia is also growing. So we can anticipate that in years to come, we will have best quality teachers in primary schools. So ladies and gentlemen, after discussing earlier some examples of the advancement of neurosciences, the brain net, artificial intelligence, the 4 scenarios of schooling by OECD. So what are the future skills that we need to embrace these future challenges? What kind of teaching should take place in schools? And many pedagogical experts argue that schools should switch to teaching the 4 C's, namely critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. And some mention 6 C's, which includes citizenship and character education. So more broadly, schools should downplay technical skills and emphasize on general purpose life skills. But more importantly, focus should be on the ability to deal with change, to learn and acquire new things, and to preserve your mental balance in unfamiliar situations like what we are experiencing now in the pandemic situation. And now teachers and students are grappling to do home-based online learning during this pandemic time. And in order to keep up with the world of 2050, you will need to not merely to invent new ideas and products. You will above all need to reinvent yourself again and again. And in order to acquire these future skills, one needs first to master the content knowledge. And as the world is evolving at a breakneck speed, we need to prepare our young kids who are going to be our future generations, leading our country with the required skills. And literature has described several vital skills for the future. For this purpose, I will quote from three important and reliable sources. One is Professor Tony Wagner, 2007, in the 7 survival skills for the future. And the other is other one is which is very close to my heart, which is my own publication in 2011 on developing soft skills among students and the skills stipulated in by the 2016 World Economic Forum. And these are the skills that has been described by Wagner: critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, agility and adaptability, initiative and entrepreneurialism, effective oral and written communication, assessing and analyzing information, curiosity and imagination. In my own publication, I have identified the following skills to be essentially acquired for the future. They are critical thinking, problem solving, which is quite similar to Tony, communication, the ability to articulate ideas through writing and verbally, working in a team, leading, and social skill. The 2020 World Economic Forum has also outlined the top 10 skills for 2025. Among them are problem-solving skills, self-management skills, working with people skills, and also skills related to technology use and development. And the 10 skills are also shown in this slide. And these are the fundamental elements that supports adaptability and flexibility of an individual embracing the uncertainties of the future. Research on a futuristic teachers model developed by the Institute of Teacher Education Malaysia revealed that creativity is the basis that leads to the other elements of future character building and development. And it is an interesting research carried out by our institution, which we use the findings to develop and review our curriculum and continuing professional development modules. And these elements identified in the model are in line with what Professor Wagner and my own research found earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, next would be how do we promote the skills needed for the future? And they can be addressed through the following aspects, namely pedagogy, curriculum, and evaluation. Research evidence from the OECD in 2011 links preschool education to increase lifetime earnings and other beneficial life outcomes. And thus, promoting life skills for the future begin at an early age. And developed countries such as Singapore, Japan, Finland, and Germany give priority to early childhood care education, or ECCE, and preschool education. And for us to change the future, work and planning has to begin with the present young ones. The ministry needs to invest more in preschool education, upgrade preschool classes in terms of learning materials, quality teachers, and ECCE must be able to provide a learning environment that nurtures thinking with the joy of learning and reading. It is equally important to give young learners the exposure and experience for learning. And teachers also need to rethink their pedagogy in the 21st century and the students' learning style in the digital era. Teachers should engage a more open-ended process of creating knowledge and an active two-way dialogue between students and teachers, peers, parents, experts, and critical friends, and inspire students to reflect. There are activities that frequently link to students' engagement through a deep learning approach. The deep learning approach promotes the use of following activities. Activities that connects to the students' world. Activities that value students' diversity, activities that encourage dialogue and group collaboration, activities that view students as the knowledge creator, a learning environment that gives students continuous feedback on the learning. For activities that connects to students' work, teachers should be able to associate elements that are most familiar to students and encompass within their own context in order to get them motivated and engaged in learning. There are 3 essential questions that teachers should have in mind in connecting learning to the students' world. First, that is how can this situation relate to students' experience? Secondly, how will teaching and learning process be organized? And thirdly, how will we know when we are achieving our aims? And teachers should consider activities that value students' diversity. In the multiple intelligences theory, students have different productivities in 9 different intelligences. So any particular strategy is likely to be successful with several students and yet not for others. Not every students need to be on the same page at the same time. So they may bring different experiences to the learning and create knowledge that expresses something uniquely of who we are. Because of these individual differences among students, teachers are best advised to use a broad range of teaching strategies with their students. And apart from that, teachers can also engage students with activities that encourage dialogue and group collaboration, and to better enhance teaching and learning and suits their learning needs of the Z or Alpha generations. Teachers should use dialogue and group collaboration approach. And the dialogue can take place among a group of students or between students and teachers. And the purpose of this approach is to seek possible answers and solutions to the problems. And powerful learning occurs in a context that fosters the formation of peer and broader communities for the construction of knowledge. And nevertheless, teachers should put their effort to plan their teaching and learning process so as to create a learning environment that benefits the multiplicity of students. It can be argued that to what extent teachers are capable of implementing this approach, as they have to fulfill the learning needs of all students within a stipulated time. And another activity to be considered are those that view students as a knowledge creator. Activities that value students' exploration, in which they investigate and solve meaningful problems and challenges, will stimulate their mind and inspire them to obtain a deep and comprehensive knowledge of a problem. And for these activities, the students frequently gain insight that lead to conclusions, and the answers are not necessarily predetermined in the textbooks or the teacher's head. So multiple intelligence research also indicates that students are more likely to retain knowledge gained through exploration and problem-solving approach compared to traditional didactic teaching and learning. In addition, the learners develop independence, confidence, and self-motivation and direction as they move through team-based research work. And finally, teachers are also encouraged to create a learning environment that gives students continuous feedback on their learning. Feedback is important for students to improve their learning. And for generations who are more accustomed to video game, they want something fast, constant response is further appealing to them. A teaching and learning process that uses continuous formative assessment or assessment during the process helps shape the learning process as compared with only a summative assessment, which is usually a test at the end. And formative assessment can be performed in various ways: a deliberate moment of self-reflection, peer review, comments or suggestions while learning in the classroom or using technology, for example, social networking in gathering feedback, suggestions, on assignments in progress sort, or maybe you can sort from parents or experts. A project-based evaluation can be used to assess students' work progress on the basis of their project rather than on a grade defined by exams, essays, or written reports. In terms of the curriculum of the future needs to keep abreast with the dynamic and forceful changes of the environment. Specific skills and knowledge learned today may be obsolete in 20 years' time or even in 5 years' time, and increasingly need to be retrained and relearned through life. The curriculum should also take into consideration the characteristic of our Z or Alpha generation, and thus the curriculum should be carefully customized, student-centered, context-sensitive learning ecologies, whereby every group of students feel that they belong to the learning environment because it connects to their needs and experiences. For creativity, critical thinking, and other soft skills characteristics to flourish, a living curriculum or thematic should become a preference more than a segmented set of courses. The curriculum should gear towards a hybrid mixes of formal and informal learning, meaning the theories and facts learned in the formal learning will make them engaged and they can apply in their experiential world. Ladies and gentlemen, after looking at the pedagogy curriculum and other elements in which is very important in promoting future skills or global skills among the students from young, is the evaluation process itself. Evaluation is the tool in the learning process that helps the students and teachers to reflect their activities, whether the process is doing well, going towards their learning outcomes. In Malaysia, our pedagogy curriculum and evaluation are very much focused on higher order thinking skills in order to prepare our students for the future. And I would like to share some of the pockets of excellence that I would like to mention that reflects the efforts of the teachers and students in moving or going towards quality education supported by the education system. For example, students who outshine and gain at international level, they gain international recognition. Our lecturers, our teachers who gain international recognition. We have pedagogical innovations and inclusive education, some innovations in the inclusive education as well. And embracing how our teachers and our students are embracing empowering Google Classroom during the pandemic. However, there are still gaps that needs to be addressed should our aims to be on par with other excellent education system and gears towards instilling global competence or skills for the future. And among the gaps that we in Malaysia we need to deal with a disparity between urban and rural, and in terms of human capital index, a PISA growth mindset, and comparison of PISA results. You can see the disparity between urban and rural is an issue worth looking, and if we want to have a better and balanced society in the future. And the disparity between urban, semi-urban and rural communities are still wide in terms of academic attainment, socio-economic status and wealth. And there is also another group that labeled as urban poor, which requires some kind of attention from the government and the policymakers. And according to a survey commissioned by UNICEF and UNFPA, among the sample is among 500 low-cost housing residents around Kuala Lumpur. 1 in 5 parents have reported that their children have lost interest in schools during this pandemic. And the study also found that 79% of the household They do not have access to computers for online learning. And according to the World Bank, in 2018, 1 in 5 Malaysia children under 5 suffers from stunting, a key marker of malnutrition. And thus we need to address the basic needs of food, nutrition, safety, and economic factors of our parents and young children before we could plan for the future of this country. And realizing human potential through the Human Capital Index is another important aspect of getting ready for the future. In the context of Malaysia, according to the World Bank's Human Capital Index, children in Malaysia will be only 62% as productive as they could be in adulthood as compared to 74% in high-income countries. And therefore, high-quality early childhood care and education to ensure that children are ready to go to school must be addressed seriously so that the future workforce of Malaysia could be more productive. And another issue that we need to address is the PISA or Program for International Student Assessment Growth Mindset and reading performance of Malaysian students as compared to other countries. Even though Malaysia is no longer listed as one-third lowest or bottom one-third country among all, yet the reading performance of Malaysian students should be increased. And our learner scored 415 points in PISA 2018 reading test as compared to OECD average of 487 points. And work must be done in cultivating reading habits among the Malaysian learners. And this should start with us, the teachers and the educators. So those are among the gaps that the ministry and the government must put emphasis if we want to weather the challenge and are ready to brace the future. Policymakers need to focus on the education initiative which develops the right skills for the future from an early age. And this must include problem-solving skills, self-management skills, working with people skills, and also skills related to technology. Used and development as identified by the Future of Jobs Report 2020 in the World Economic Forum. And thus, ladies and gentlemen, participants and presenters of IConFEd 2020, in conclusion, it is crucial to have a good balance of content and thinking skills. More importantly, for teachers and educators like us, we must have the pedagogical skills, the pedagogical ability to engage our students by making connections between important content of learning and the future skills required. And focus must be given from an early age in instilling relevant values and thinking skills. So we need to bring the best out of our students by employing an appropriate pedagogical approach that connects to the real world and to enable them to relate to the content knowledge and basic concepts that they have learned. And students, they must be empowered to take charge of their own learning. And the recent pandemic requires us to rethink about the way we teach, the way children learn, the challenges of the new norms. All the uncertainties and surprises must be faced in a creative, adaptable, and yet sophisticated way with the help of digital tools and transformation. And therefore, we need to be aware of the trend and scenario of the future, and not just in Malaysia, but also across the border at international level. So with that, I end my keynote session. Thank you for listening and for having me as part of this conference. Stay safe, take care, and bye-bye.